Double victory Monday. Bills and Sabres winning on the same day. The Bills 23, the Browns 20. It's Jeremy and Joe here on a football Monday, joined now by Sal Capaccio on the Westher hotline. Back from Cleveland. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning. How are you?
Not bad. You get 2 wins in the same day. Did you catch the Sabres game after? Were you done with things?
I did. I mean, honestly, I was home last night. We had landed before the Sabres game started. How about that? It was pretty crazy. I mean, it's obviously a quick trip to Cleveland, and I actually I was kind of really multitasking. So I had the Sabres game on the TV or the computer, switching back and forth depending on period and what time when the game was. And then I was also writing my arrow up, arrow down column at the same time, trying to keep an eye on everything that was going on. And nice win for the Sabres. Really happy, obviously to be able to, be in a position now where we can have some live hockey, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 6-game win streak. They're in the mix.
Yeah.
So on the game yesterday, Sal, your arrow up, arrow down column is available for everyone at WGR550.com. We'll go through some of that. Let's start, though, with the Barnes Firm Injury Report brought to you by the Barnes Firm. Injured for help, call 1-800-8-million. Other than Josh Allen, I don't know what there is, Sal, but Shaq Thompson maybe, but I think everyone was holding their breath when Allen was looking down at his ankle and kind of limping off the field a little bit, and I guess he went for x-rays during the game, right?
Yeah, so let's take you through that part of it first. Obviously, we all saw Josh fall down to the ground near the goal line, got up. He was in pain for sure. He stayed in, though, on that play, which was good news. And then not only that, they did that tush push. He actually took the ball and tried to run down the field like he was like, oh, I wasn't touched. And that was encouraging. But then once that series was over, he came over and he was clearly in a lot of pain on the sidelines. You can see trainers with him. And they basically motioned, okay, let's, go in the locker room now. So he walked right past me into the locker room, and he was definitely limping. Once he got in the tunnel, it seemed like he was limping even more. But he was in pain. He was favoring it. Told at halftime he went for x-rays on his foot. I was just said foot, didn't say ankle, but went for x-rays on his foot. He was cleared to return. So obviously that was a big sigh of relief. He went back out there. I didn't notice any sort of necessary wrap or anything on him. I will say this, though, Joe. I could see his ankle kind of showing on the left, but not on the right, because the spandex he was wearing covered the right. So maybe there was something a little extra on there, maybe some sort of wrap or something like that. I do also think that it's possible that the foot injury impacted a couple throws he made in the second half, because it seemed like, a couple of the ones that were missed, maybe he wasn't necessarily planting in that foot. Not really sure what that was. After the game, he said he tweaked it and it flared up a little bit. He should be okay. I would tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the injury report this week, right? I mean, this is a kind of injury where maybe they manage him a little bit, make sure he's okay. But good news on that front. Shaq Thompson, he got hurt early in the game. He hurt his neck, and he was questionable to return. I will say he got his helmet and stood on the sidelines the rest of the game. They never put him in. I don't know if that means that they just didn't want him to go in because of the injury, or just said, let's back it off, whatever. He had his helmet. He never went back in the game with the neck injury. So we'll see where that goes. Later in the game, Jordan Poyer left the game with a hamstring injury. Now, we didn't get an official word because it was very late, but we do know it looked like he injured his hamstring. He did leave the game for a couple of plays at the end. And then I believe at some point late, Spencer Brown went off for a couple of plays because Ryan Vandermark went in at right tackle. And there's nothing on that yet. Again, a couple of late injuries that we'll have to keep an eye on here.
Yeah, and Allen especially with that injury. And going into this week, I don't know if you were tracking the scenarios, Sal, during Sunday Night Football, but it seemed like that this did not end up happening, but if Baltimore had beaten New England, the Bills really wouldn't have been playing for much against Philadelphia, because the division would have come down to Week 18 no matter what. But again, that scenario doesn't play out. So if you want to go for the division, there's no do you hold Allen back at all conversation. You would obviously play him against Philadelphia, assuming he's good. And also, again, I almost feel nervous talking about injuries in this way because, the people think of the jinxes, but I'll knock on the wood. But Baltimore last night, every time if you're a Ravens fan, that Lamar Jackson goes to the sideline and he is wincing in pain, I would be nervous that he's going to leave the game or maybe miss multiple games. If there's anything that separates Allen and Jackson, I feel like, Sal, it's one guy misses time, and it happens a lot. And Allen, even when he's gotten that broken hand or that elbow thing a couple years ago, or now he's got this foot, everyone's just always got that expectation, no, he'll play through it.
Yeah, Allen, one of his, big attributes, superpowers, if you will, is his availability. I mean, he has the. This is a really good question. Do we count the Phillip Rivers streak? Phillip Rivers actually technically has now the
That's a
longest
good
active
question.
starting streak.
I feel
of
like
any
that can't
quarterback.
possibly count. I mean, he missed 5 years of starts.
Right. It is actually officially, though. Officially, Phillip
Okay.
Rivers is still, but Josh is second. But, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Josh does have that streak going. And part of the reason is Josh he's the way he's built and the way how tough he is. And, Lamar Jackson's a smaller quarterback. He's just over 200 pounds. That's not Josh, right? And we know Josh can take a little bit more of punishment. And obviously that plays a factor into it a little bit here. And it feels like Lamar's been kind of dealing with some stuff all year. For Josh Allen, though, to be available every week is obviously says a lot about him. No matter what, he would start. We know that against Philly or the Jets. It doesn't matter what's on the line because that streak matters to him and his teammates. That being said, you're right, Joe, that next week if it played out differently last night, maybe you start thinking about how you want to play it. But there's still a lot here on the table as far as seeding. And I just wonder, like, looking around the league and looking around the AFC, how things play out, what the Bills feel about everything about where they are, the seeding, and what's worth playing, put foot on the gas for and not. They haven't clinched a playoff spot yet. They can tonight. They will. They'll be in the playoffs. But there's a lot of stuff still to be decided here. And on top of it, if they do go to Pittsburgh, right, which is trending, it could happen.
Yep.
Honestly, like Pittsburgh's probably resting their guys week 18, Joe, because they don't have anything to play for, it feels like.
Right. If the division's not in play, which I think at the moment
they're going to be locked into their seed week 18.
Right. Yeah, right now Pittsburgh's 9-6 and Baltimore is 7-8. Yeah, you're right. Unless you flip those, like if Pittsburgh loses next week and Baltimore wins, then Pittsburgh's going to have a week to kind of rest up there. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do. I don't want to go too far away from this game, though, Sal, because they did get the job done. I guess, were you ever nervous during the game that they weren't going to close it out? Because even when it was a 6-point game, maybe once it got to 3, everybody was kind of feeling the same way. But even when it was like a 6-point game, I don't know. I just never felt like it's the Browns. It's Shedeur Sanders. Like, I know they're not playing their best right now in all aspects of the game, but they're not going to find a way to lose to this team.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way as the game going on. When it got to 3, it's like, okay, like even if you, worst case scenario, go to overtime, it felt to me like I don't think the Browns are going to get down there and score the, tying touchdown or go-ahead touchdown. I just never felt that the Bills would allow that to happen, I guess. But hey, of course they could have, right? But you always feel like they're going to find a way to kind of figure this out at the end. And they did. They found a way to figure it out at the end. It was not the most well-played game by the Bills. It wasn't the best game. I mean, this was a reversal of script over the last few weeks. The Bills typically had kind of been down, and then they just make adjustments second half. They come back out in the second half, and they put their foot down. And I was actually told by somebody in Cleveland yesterday, hey, you know what? The Browns usually keep games close by halftime, and then things go, funky and the wrong way for them in the second half. So I'm like, all right, we'll probably see the same thing happen like happened the last few weeks for the Bills. It was the opposite here. Bills had a nice lead. They had a 10-point lead. They were cruising along. Give the Browns credit. They're a very, very good defense. No doubt about that. They made some adjustments to shut down the Bills' run game, and the Bills didn't have any answers for that. And, as much credit as I've given and we've given Joe Brady and the offense for the adjustments they've made, Joe, the last couple of weeks, I think they should have done a better job of finding more answers in the run game yesterday. They did not find those answers in the run game. And then when you don't find those, you go to the air, and they just, again, don't have receivers getting open. Outside of Khalil Shakir, they had, 3 catches for wide receivers overall. And they had a big drop by Brandon Cooks, obviously. He had a couple misfires from Josh. He had a couple drops. Dawson Knox had the drop. If Dawson Knox catches that ball, it's a totally different end of the game script and talking point, right? I get it. But he didn't, and the Bills had to close it out on defense.
Right. The game feels different if Knox catches that, but that's something Knox has dealt with mostly earlier in his career, but drop problems along the way. I think James Cook had a drop in this game also. That's how it felt. It just felt sloppy through the air, and Cooks, especially because that's back-to-back games for him now with a play like that. And you had Gabe Davis and Keon Coleman inactive. So I don't want to go too far away from James Cook because I thought he was phenomenal on this day, especially in that big run. But when they go to the pass, Sal, who they're counting on, it's different week to week. But I think you'd really want Kincaid to be that answer, and he's not fully healthy. And I feel like the Brandon Cooks experiment or, Josh Palmer at this point, right? Like we talked about him a little bit earlier in the show, that's an $11 million receiver that led your team in snaps yesterday, and it's 1 catch for 2 yards. Like you'd want more from him, especially.
Yeah, on the play where Josh got hurt, Josh Palmer also came out of the game. I think it was that same play. It was that series for sure.
Okay.
He also came out of the game for a minute. He was limping, and I just wonder if he's still being bothered. Now, obviously, he wasn't on the injury report this week, but he just hasn't been able to get right. And not only off the field with the injury, obviously, but you're right, on the field. That's just we haven't seen what I think a lot of us and the Bills believe they were getting in Josh Palmer as a separator and being a bit of a difference maker on the outside. That hasn't happened. And look, the Bills are going to have these choices with Gabe Davis and Keon Coleman, and I get it. I think Gabe Davis should have been active the last 2 weeks, and he hasn't been active. And the Bills, don't have many options there. But if Gabe Davis is active and Keon Coleman's active, I also don't know like how much it changes, to be quite honest with you, Joe. Like what there's been nothing to show, no matter who they put out there, that they have, this wide receiver group that can do that job on the outside. Now, I will say the one thing about Gabe that I love for him is Josh trusts him. He's really good in the scramble drill with him.
Yep.
And yesterday you might have needed that a couple of times.
Right, just a guy that he trusts. It was a good thing they had Cook, right, Sal, yesterday. Like, there's a lot of, good thing they paid him in the offseason, and he now leads the league in rushing, and he has a good look at the rushing title. Taylor's 90 yards behind him, or 89 yards behind him going into tonight. And it wasn't even just that big run. I mean, it was like 4.9 yards per carry I saw in his other 15 carries. It could have been a game, honestly, Sal, you could have looked at it and said, like, they should have given him more.
Yeah, and I give the Browns defense a lot of credit. They did a good job. Again, it's a very good defense. They made some adjustments, whatever that was, to shut down the Bills' run game, but the Bills did not do a good enough job to kind of figure out how to run the ball once that started happening. James Cook himself, though, 100 yards exactly in the first half. That run he had for a touchdown was incredible. It was great. I mean, in the open field, he twists guys and turns guys, and he's so good at that. He's also so good at the goal line, of getting the ball over the goal line. And it's a little dangerous at times, right? Like, is he to hold on to the ball? And I remember a couple of weeks ago, he almost had that fumble and the weird play with Cincinnati and then went out of bounds and all that. But he's just so good in those situations. And you're right. He's looking at a rushing title possibly. We'll see what happens tonight with Jonathan Taylor. Josh Allen said after the game that James Cook deserves to be, in the running or mention or whatever he said for
awards,
every single award.
Yeah.
And I mean, certainly Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, James Cook absolutely has to be in the conversation for that award this year.
Yeah. How much do you think the Bills care about him getting the rushing title?
Well, I think they care. I think they care because he'll care, right? I mean, and why not? You know how I say that, Joe? Why I say that? They cared last year about getting him the touchdowns record.
Touchdown
they put
record.
Him back in the game.
Right.
Remember, they put him back in the game in a meaningless week 18 to get the record last year.
Right, in the second half. Yeah, he had been out. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you wouldn't want them to go too far with it, right? Like if week 18 ends up not mattering for some reason and like you're, and he's 100 yards away. But he might not be. I mean, the way the Colts are playing right now and Taylor hasn't been putting up numbers, like he might just get it anyway.
The only way week 18 doesn't matter is if the Bills lose next week, right? If the Bills win, no matter what happens, week 18 matters.
Right. If the Bills were to lose next week and the Patriots do what we think they will, which is beat the Jets, then I believe week 18 wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter for the division. I mean, for the division.
Yeah. Could you imagine, though? Could you imagine if before the Bills play next week, somehow, some way, the Jets upset the Patriots?
It would be
because if that game's at 1:00. It would be the Bills play at 4:25.
Big vibe change really quickly because suddenly, like you tell me that an upset like that happens, I'm racing to find out like what the Bills can do to get the 1 seed all of a sudden because I think they're only a game back.
Yeah,
so,
you're right about that. I mean, there's so much to be decided here. Like, I mean, Denver, New England, Jacksonville all have Jacksonville's path to the 1 seed is legit right now.
Yeah, it is.
Right, and the Chargers can still catch Denver.
Yep.
And then they could actually outside chance still get the 1 seed as well. I mean, you got Houston and Indy. If Indy wins tonight, they're still only a game back at Houston. They play each other still. There's a lot to be decided here. And the Bills, for their part, it's looking like they could get to the 5, but man, the Chargers are looking really good. Are they going to relinquish that? Maybe the Bills finish as the 6. There's a lot still to happen.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, there are 5 teams that are still alive for the 1 seed, and like realistically, and that Chargers-Broncos game could end up being the Week 18 Sunday night game, the way things are headed. And so the Pittsburgh-Baltimore thing looks like it might be over in a little
agree.
bit.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Defensively, Sal, in this game against the Browns, we talked about how they did allow some big run plays. It was that jet sweep play that they couldn't stop early on in the game. So I wonder what you feel about their overall team performance defensively. They certainly got big performances, though, from individuals.
Greg Rousseau specifically, really nice game for him. 2.5 sacks. And I don't want to throw water on it. He deserves all the credit. When you're playing a rookie quarterback who, holds on the ball a little bit too long, you're confusing him, and he's got a bit of I want to say a little slower delivery, I think, than some of the other guys. You have opportunity there. And the D-line did a nice job in the pass game yesterday with Greg Rousseau getting there and getting their hands up in the air. They caused an interception. Jordan Poyer's first interception, by the way, since 2022. That was off of Quinshon Judkins. But, you had a couple interceptions. Daquan Jones off the batted ball from Joey Bosa. So those things happened. Greg Rousseau, great job to get to the quarterback. So give him a lot of credit. No doubt about that. They were not great against the run, but some of their biggest runs, as you said, came off script, if you will. Yeah. Meaning, scripted play on an end around, but a bit of a chicanery like New England did last week. I think they saw what New England was able to do on a couple of those runs. They went to it, and the Bills just didn't have enough on the edges to get there. And then scrambles. This is something that hurt the Bills early in the year. And they've been pretty buttoned up on it, other than, Drake May had a couple of runs, but they were okay on it the last several weeks and throughout most of the season since then. But yesterday, Shedeur Sanders had a run of 13 yards, a run of 14 yards, a run of 16 yards. These third down and longs that hurt them. Screen passes hurt them bad yesterday.
Yep.
And I think on that, I'm going to tip my cap to the Browns. They had really good calls to counter what they felt when the Bills were blitzing. When the Bills blitzed yesterday, they just left too many lanes open. But I think the Bills were blitzing to speed Shedeur Sanders up a bit. And I understand that strategy, but give the Browns credit for having some nice counters to that.
Right. Judkins only went 8 carries for 22 yards before he went out with that devastating injury that'll knock him out for a long time. What did you think of the fourth down decision making by McDermott?
Anything specific you want to bring up here? Because I'm trying to remember if there's
the two. The two really in the second half. I wondered if it wasn't just about the game or the score because.
Well, tell me which ones specifically what happened.
4th and 4, they go for it at the Cleveland 33 with 13 minutes left. They are, and the score I think is the same for both of these. They are, that one they're up 6. So you're up 6.
Okay, this is the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter. You're up.
Okay, I will tell you this.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is the one that he missed Shavers, right?
Yes, over the middle.
Okay, missed Shavers. And by the way, a lot of talk about Josh missed the throw. I think he thought Tyrell was going to stop, and Tyrell kept going. I think there was miscommunication.
Okay.
There. I think that's what happened. I'm not positive. I will say this, though, Joe. Michael Badgley going in that direction in warmups was short from 52.
Really?
Yes.
Short from 52. Didn't just miss it.
In warmups, in that direction. Yeah. I saw him short from 52.
Man. So that
might give context to why they're going for it there.
Right, because
he also hit the upright the other way, on a kick.
Right, on his extra point. That would have been a 51-yard attempt, right, on that one to go up 9. And then the other one this is the one that Knox drops in the end zone, right? It's 4th and 1 at the Cleveland 11, and you're up 3 with 2:53. That's the field goal of death that is often described as you go up 6. And again, I wondered if maybe they would do it because they trusted their defense against that opponent specifically.
Agreed.
But it's 1 yard, right? And also you had it. The play worked. It just you just had a mistake.
For all that, I think that Joe Brady should have done a better job and the offensive staff of maybe countering, to get back to the run game a little better. That was a great play design, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give him credit. There's nothing more the coach can do there. He can't catch the ball for Dawson Knox. And, Dawson had some drops early in his career, but he's been generally very reliable the last few years, and especially this year for Josh. And that's when he wants back. And he took accountability in the locker room. He said how bad he felt. He let down his teammates, and, he doesn't really know what happened there. And, unfortunate drop for him. But fortunately, it didn't hurt the Bills, obviously. So I was good with them. I think the play design was great right there. And I just, a little context to the other one, though, is I just wonder if they just didn't trust their kicker.
Right. Sal Capaccio with us. I wanted to get to the linebacker rotation with you, Sal, but we didn't really. I don't know if we got a great look at it because of the Thompson injury.
Well, you're right. I don't know if did you see what happened before that? How they were playing it?
Yeah, it was when they were in nickel, Milano was out there, but maybe when they were in base, Dorian Williams was getting out there even, right? When they were in base.
Yeah. So before Thompson got hurt, he was at Mike, and then in both Milano and Bernard played Will for a couple of plays, a play or two. They had rotated there, and then because he gets hurt, Bernard goes back to the middle and plays Mike. For the last 2 weeks, I've heard a lot of fans say, yeah, don't even dress Bernard. We don't need him out there. I don't even want to have that. And I get it. The fear is the Bills will put him back out there instead of Shaq Thompson, and Shaq Thompson's been playing well. And my response to that has always been, listen, Terrell Bernard healthy is good for this team because you don't know when you're going to need him to play, and you might want Shaq Thompson out there. What happens to Shaq? Well, guess what? Something happened to Shaq, and I'm not telling you Terrell Bernard had an amazing game, but thank goodness they had Terrell Bernard available yesterday to play the Mike linebacker spot, because then they would have been in a much different situation.
Right. And we'll see, I guess, right. It was a very odd rotation before the injury, so if Thompson's healthy, we'll see what that looks like going forward.
That's right.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. Thank you, Sal.
All right. We'll see you a little bit later.
Extra Point Show coming up at 10 o'clock, so stay tuned for that.